Hey, what's going on, everyone? This week's video is extra special because it has finally arrived. This week, Thursday, we had the series premiere for Star Trek Lower Decks. I'm going to be doing the review for that. So get yourself a glass of Romulan whiskey and relax as I do my review for Second Contact. Hit it. Hey everyone, welcome back to the channel. This is Star Trek is Happiness. I'm your host, Dre. And if you have not watched Star Trek Lower Decks yet and you want to, don't watch this video. It's gonna be spoilers. If you don't want to hear any of those, please go watch that and then come back. But if you have watched it, or if you know I'm never going to get CBS All Access and you don't care about being spoiled, then welcome. I'm going to get right into it. So the title episode is Second Contact. And the episode starts out in classic Star Trek fashion. There's a lot of Star Trek factions, right? But it starts out like most Star Trek episodes. You get a little bit of the episode, and then you get the opening sequence of credits. And it to me is fantastic. You want to follow that formula, that's fine. So with the opening sequence, we hear Ensign Brad Boimler doing his log, but he's doing it as the captain's log, and we see Ensign Mariner. She stumbles upon him doing his recording, and she's making fun of him, like, "You're doing a captain's log?" He's like, "Well, we're all supposed to keep logs." And she's just riding him a little bit about it, and then they're in the hallway, and he's like, "Are you drunk?" And she is drunk on Romulan whiskey. And it's against Federation regulations to have Romulan whiskey, because it's also against regulations to have Romulan ale. But she doesn't care. As a matter of fact, she tells him, and we see that she has a whole bunch of contraband that she got during her shore leave at Douglas Station. And she proceeds to, mess with him a little bit. And she has Batleth, and she's kind of like, "We're gonna be friends and have honor in battle." And she slices his leg open. And then we get into the opening sequence, right? And we see the USS Cerritos, which is the name of the ship that they're stationed on, trying to escape a black hole. But it can't, so it gets sucked into the black hole and then spit back out and pops up on screen again. That's kind of hilarious to me. And then another part of the opening sequence, they're navigating through some kind of ice, asteroids or chunks of ice in space. One of the pylons hit it, they lose power, the ship starts to drift listlessly into space. And I'm like, okay, what? Okay, so from the opening sequence alone, you can see that you're going to be in for a fun time. And they make sure this is going to be silly, this is going to be funny. And it was, to me. Once we get past the opening sequence, we meet ensign uh, Tandy, and she is super excited. It's her first day on a new ship, and she's so happy to be there. And when the shuttle doors open, that's when we see the first of the Easter eggs start to roll out. At least that's the first Easter egg I noticed, because one of the Starfleet officers who disembarked from the shuttle, they have one of the visors that we see Geordi sport in the Next Generation series before he gets his ocular implants. So we see, a character with that over their eyes, and I thought that was pretty cool. And we also see some of the aliens referenced. You also see some of the aliens from Next Generation show up as well throughout the Lower Decks premiere episode. So it was a ton of Easter eggs. I'm not going to get into those very much, though. This is just a review video. So moving on, we see her. She introduces herself to the guy that's doing the intake. But she's an ensign. She's brand new. She's unimportant. He doesn't care. He sends her on her way. She meets Brad and Mariner. They're conducting maintenance on this replicator that's replicating hot bananas. Literally, the thing is saying banana, hot, and it's spitting them out. And why a replicator would replicate hot bananas, I don't know. Yeah, super silly. Definitely goes with the show. And it was at this moment we see Brad make a bit of the embarrassing moment trying to impress Tandy because she's cute. And then we get a little insight into Mariner. Turns out she's been promoted and demoted and been on different ships quite a few times. Not really sure what other ships she served on. So we know that she's been around for a while. And it's one of those things where she's like, oh, you don't want to go to the bridge. You don't want to worry about those senior officers. They're always stressed. You want to be down here with us, the lower decks. It's where we cool, scrappy underdogs all hang out. So, you're good with us. And then they proceed to take her on a tour of the ship. Along the way, we are introduced to the fourth main character for Lower Decks, and that is Ensign Rutherford. And he's working on some kind of conduit or something like that. And he talks about how he has a date, and he is kind of unsure. He has a date, and he's kind of nonchalant about it, because it turns out he has a new cybernetic implant, but it's Vulcan, and it's suppressing his emotions. Mariner, she does something to adjust it. She makes adjustments to it, and the next thing you know, this guy is a ball of anxiety. Super nervous about his date now. Which is okay with him, apparently, because he's like, oh, yeah, I want to, be able to actually feel excited about this date. But he's more nervous than excited. They cut to what's going on the surface of this new planet that I believe joined the Federation. And the first officer gets stung or bit by this alien insect, and dramatic music, And I'm like, okay, this is gonna lead to something. Brad and Mariner are continuing to give Tendi her tour, and before they proceed, Mariner, she's like, hey, let's go to the holodeck. I don't care about any other part of the ship besides the bar. Let's go to the holodeck. And Brad's like, no, we don't have time for that. At this point, Mariner says, well, what time is it? And don't check, because if you know she doesn't have time for this, you know what time it is right now. She wins because he didn't know what time it is, and they're on the holodeck. And this is where we see 10D ask the computer to replicate a portion of her homeworld, and the people that we see have green skin and green hair like her. So I'm gonna say that I'm 99% sure Ensign Tendi is an Orion, and I think that's pretty cool because I have always wanted to see a bit of a different take on the Orions. They're the troublemakers of the galaxy. We know all about the Orion Syndicate. They're talked about a lot with having, dealings with not so savory people in the Federation. They're talked about having dealings with Cardassians, Romulans, you name it, they've had dealings with them, and it's usually something shady and not very flattering about this alien species. So I'm believing that this is a fresh take on them, and that she is the first and only Orion in Starfleet. And if so, I really hope that we get more of an insight into their culture and their history through her, and that we get to see, that represented in this series. Because I would love to know more about the Orions. But moving on, at this time, Brad receives a hail to report to the bridge. Captain Freeman, she comes along, and she's like, oh, Ensign, you're with me. And they're in her ready room. But she likes that he seems to be a real stickler for the rules. Because of this, she gives him the special assignment to watch over Ensign Mariner. Anything she does out of regulation, report to the captain. But it's between them. He can't let anyone else know that he's doing this. So we see them eventually beam down to the planet. At this time, we also see Sam. He's on his date. He's in the bar of the Cerritos. It's going well. Him and this other ensign, they have a good rapport. And that's when things go wrong. Like clockwork, things start to go wrong. The first officer with the bug bite, he ends up turning into a zombie. He hops on someone, bites him. They bite someone else, and then the next thing you know, the entire bar of the Cerritos has a bunch of space zombies running around. So while that's going on, we see Brad and Mariner. They're on the planet, and Brad is sure enough following through with his special assignment. Mariner has a cargo container loaded in the back of a SUV type vehicle. No, not really an SUV, more of a dune buggy type vehicle, and she drives off. He follows her, and once he sees she's come to a stop and she's talking to two of the native people of this planet, he makes the assumption that she's selling them Federation weapons. This isn't weapons, you idiot. These are farm equipment. These people are farmers. In their haste to escape from this spider-like creature, she informs him that, I told you it was farm equipment. It was farm equipment. I decided to help these people out instead of making them wait for Federation bureaucracy to give them what they need. And he's like, well, how do you know they were farmers and needed equipment? It turns out she was there for first contact the year before with these people. what happens is she's getting them out of this situation. She kind of makes dummies of them, and the creature goes after his uniform, but not hers. We go back to the Certos, where the zombie outbreak is getting worse. Sam and his date, they have a spacewalk. We see them access a maintenance hatch. They walk across the saucer section. We see Tindy. She ends up going to sick bay. She makes it to sick bay finally. In the whole process, she's holding this guy's heart. For some reason, his heart is out of his chest. And she's like, "Oh, I'm so sorry." And he's like, "Can you stop pumping my heart? It hurts when you do that." Back to the planet. We see Mariner and Brad. She jumps down. Brad jumps down too, but the creature catches him in her mouth. And we see the farmers, they've returned. It turns out it's an herbivore, and it's not gonna eat him. And the farmers, they tell her that. They're like, "Oh, she's an herbivore. She just wants to suck on him for some moisture." So Brad continues to get suckled on by this creature until finally it tuckers out and it's tired and it goes to sleep. Now he's just covered in pink slime, and he has to get some clothes from the farmer. At this point, we see them being back up to the ship, where chaos is still ensuing, and this zombie virus is taking over almost all of the ship. But the chief medical officer, she has a tricorder, and she's analyzing the slime, the pink slime that Brad is covered in, and she realizes, hey, this stuff completely neutralizes the rage effect for this virus. So they make it to sick bay, and the doctor is able to synthesize a cure for this rage virus. They don't call it a zombie virus, they end up calling it a rage virus. And Mariner gets upset because they don't acknowledge that Brad saves the day by returning to the ship with this pink slime all over him. The doctor, she gets all the credit, but she's not happy about it. She's like, "Oh great, more paperwork." We see Brad, he's in Captain Freeman's ready room, so he ends up not ratting her out, basically. Once he's dismissed, we see Captain Freeman make a transmission to an admiral, and they're talking about how she doesn't fit in here, Ensign Mariner. And Captain Freeman's like, "No, she's not fitting in here. I need you to transfer her somewhere else." And she's like, "I kind of want to put her in the brig." And he's like, "No, you can't put her in the brig. She likes it, the brig. So you can't do that. So come up with something else. I don't care. But, you got to try and figure it out." At this point, Captain Freeman says, "Don't hang up on me. She's your daughter too." That was a huge, huge twist that I did not see coming. But it certainly adds a layer to the show that I wasn't expecting. We see Mariner and Brad. At first, they're only talking with each other. And she's like, "Oh, you didn't rat me out," because he told her, "Oh, I was supposed to tell on you if you did anything outside of regulations, but I did not, especially since what you did actually helped those farmers." Which, good job, Brad. Good job. You get a little bit of what it was she was trying to tell you, which is that you have to think for yourself a little bit. We see Tandy and Rutherford. They're talking to each other about the date, and Rutherford's like, "Yeah, that chick was great. She was beautiful. She was smart, but I'm not gonna see her again." because she wasn't concerned with the turbo lift not working during red alert like I was. All four of them come together. Mariner talks about, Brad, we're going to get you in the captain's chair. I don't care about being in the captain's chair, but I'm going to help you become a captain because that's your dream. I'm going to be your mentor. And then she talks about, oh, do you know about Sulu? You could have a sword like he did. Do you know about Deanna Troi? Do you know about Worf? Do you know about all these different Star Trek characters? I do like that overall the silliness and the comedy is there. That's like the main thing about this show. They're going to find themselves in funny situations. Funny things are going to happen, but it's going to have just a small dash of heart and a little bit of seriousness, which is inverse to what Star Trek typically does. It's, all seriousness all the time with hints of humor here and there. I think it's a good change of pace. I really enjoyed it. I cannot wait for episode 2. Scale of 1 to 5, 5 being the highest. You know what? I'm gonna give it 5 out of 5 quantum torpedoes. How about that? So for me, it was a great start to the series. And it knows what it is. Star Trek Lower Decks knows that it's going to be a silly show. It knows it's going to be a comedy show. And it's definitely adult humor. It hit the mark for me. It really did. The tone, the pacing, all of it. Stellar job out the gate. Fantastic. It streams, again, you guys, on CBS All Access. Every Thursday, we have 1 episode down. 10 episodes to go, and then of course we're going to get into Discovery season 3, and I'll be doing reviews for that too. And just in case you guys are wondering, here's my shirt. Okay, sure you guys are wondering. So those are Klingon Birds of Prey, and it's an arcade type deal. And if you go up, oh. So there's the shirt that I've been sporting in this video. I will have a link for that in the descriptions. I'll also have a link for the hat. And I will also have my Twitter handle and the Twitter handle of the artist who did the artwork for the channel's profile picture in the description as well. So with that, stay safe and keep on trekking.